It was close to midnight when the road turned to nothing. Just me, my old Ford, and the endless hiss of desert wind brushing against the windows. The GPS screen had gone gray hours ago. No signal, no directions, just the line of cracked asphalt stretching through the Nevada emptiness. I'd been driving from Flagstaff to Reno after a late-night photography job, too tired to think straight, too stubborn to stop. My tank needle was low, my eyelids heavier, when the first sign appeared out of the dark. The Road Motel 2 miles ahead. White paint, red letters, the kind of sign you expect in a ghost story. I didn't remember seeing it on any map. Still, I felt a flicker of relief. I needed gas, coffee, sleep. Another sign followed, hand-painted, dangling on one chain. Rooms open, no checkout after sunrise. I laughed nervously, probably some kind of joke. When the headlights finally caught the building, I slowed almost instinctively. It wasn't a motel so much as a strip of rotting wood and peeling paint, 6 rooms, a dusty parking lot, and a single flickering neon vacancy sign fighting against the dark. A shadow of a man sat behind the counter inside the office. My stomach tightened. I should have kept driving. But exhaustion whispers louder than instinct. The office bell rang when I pushed the door open. The smell hit first, stale cigarettes and rain-soaked carpet. Behind the counter stood a man who looked carved from the same dust as the desert. Thin, tall, eyes too sharp to be friendly. "Even in," he said, his voice deep and oddly calm. "You look tired." "Yeah," I muttered, rubbing my eyes. "Long drive, just need a bed for the night." He nodded once and slid a leather book toward me. No computer, just yellow pages filled with names written in pencil. "Sign your name," he said. "Room 6 is clean." I signed, hesitating only when I noticed the last entry before mine. Dated 1982. "Been a while since your last guest," I asked with a forced smile. He looked at me or through me and said, "People come and go. Some roads just don't lead back." Then he slid me a key, the old metal kind, and added, "Don't open the curtains after midnight. The lights on the highway ain't for travelers." I tried to laugh. "You mean headlights?" He didn't answer. Outside, the desert wind howled like a scream, fading into static. Room 6 smelled faintly of mold and cleaning alcohol. The wallpaper peeled like skin, the floor creaked with every step, and the bedspread was covered in strange patterns of faded red stains. Dried paint, I told myself. Paint. I set my camera bag down, turned on the lamp, it flickered, and sat on the bed. That's when I saw the photo frame on the nightstand. A picture of 3 people, a couple and a young boy. Their faces were clear except for the boy, which was scratched out completely. The hair on my arm stood up. I turned the frame over. Someone had written on the back in blue ink, "They never checked out." I placed it down slowly. My pulse was climbing, my chest tightening, but fatigue still tugged at my body. So I lay down, shoes still on, and told myself I'd be gone at sunrise. But sometime after midnight, I woke to the sound of footsteps just outside the door. Not walking, packing. Back and forth, slow, heavy, the shuffle of boots against gravel. Then a knock. 3 dull thuds. I froze. "Yeah," I called out. No answer. The packing stopped. When I finally got up the courage to peek through the peephole, there was no one, only the dim orange light from the office sign. But then movement, far beyond the lot. A pale light drifting along the highway like a single car's headlamp, swaying side to side. And faintly from outside my window, a whisper. "Don't open the curtains." I stepped back, my throat went dry. Because it wasn't the innkeeper's voice, it was my own. I didn't sleep after that. I sat against the headboard, clutching my camera, telling myself I'd imagined it. The wind, the pipes, exhaustion, that's all. But at 2:47 a.m., the lamp flickered again, and I heard something tapping against the window. Not hard, gentle, like fingernails. Tab, tab, tab. Against my better judgment, I turned my head slowly toward the sound. The curtain swayed slightly from the air vent, but the shape behind it, I swear, was the silhouette of a woman. Long hair, thin shoulders, her face just a shadow. She stood motionless for several seconds. Then the whisper came again, the same as before but closer. They never checked out. I stumbled backward and nearly tripped over my bag. My camera slid across the floor. When I looked back, she was gone. I ran to the door, yanked it open, and pointed my flashlight at the window from outside. Nothing, not even footprints in the dirt. Only the sound of the neon sign buzzing overhead, and faintly something else, a child's laughter carried by the wind. At dawn, I went back to the office. The innkeeper was gone, but a different man sat behind the counter, gray beard, friendly eyes, and the same blue uniform shirt. "You checking out?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, voice trembling. "The guy last night, tall, thin, rough voice, is he around?" He frowned. "You mean Hank? Son, Hank died in 1983. Heart attack. I've been running this place since." I blinked. "That's impossible." He gave me the key. The man studied me, lips tightening. "You stayed in room 6. "Yes." He sighed, leaned back, and said, "You ever heard of the Lost Road legend?" I shook my head. "People say there's a stretch of highway in Nevada that loops through time after midnight. You take a wrong turn, you end up where the dead still travel. Folks who die on that road stop here sometimes. They don't know they're gone, and the motel, well, it keeps them." I laughed shakily, but he didn't. Then he added, almost a whisper, "You should go, son, before night finds you again." When I stepped outside, my car was covered in dust, as if it had been parked there for decades. When I turned onto the main road again, the morning sun already felt wrong. Too pale, too sharp, like the light after a camera flash, cold, washed out, unreal. The GPS was still dead. My phone read 7:03 a.m., July 11, 1982. I blinked, checked again. The date didn't change. I drove fast, gripping the wheel, trying to shake off the dread. The motel shrank in the rearview mirror until it disappeared. But 10 minutes later, the sign appeared again, the Road Motel, 2 miles ahead. I froze, my stomach dropped. No, I've been driving straight. No turns, no detours, no way. I slammed the brakes. Threw the car into reverse, then forward again, faster this time. The desert blurred into one long smear of tan and rust. 10 minutes, 15. And there it was again. Rooms open, no checkout after sunrise. I hit the steering wheel, screaming, "No, no, no, no." The motel stood ahead of me like it had been waiting. And this time, there was another car parked in front. It was an old red Mustang, dusty but not abandoned. The doors were closed, the engine cold, but I could see movement inside. A woman in her 20s, dark hair, pale face. She was crying. I knocked on the window. She startled, then rolled it down halfway. "You're real?" I asked. She looked confused. "I think so." Her boyfriend got out from the driver's side, tall, jittery, clutching a coffee thermos like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. "We've been trying to leave," he said. "Every road brings us back here." "How long?" He hesitated. "I don't know anymore. Days, maybe weeks." The woman looked at me with wide, wet eyes. "Have you seen the boy?" "What boy?" "The one who knocks." I froze, my pulse hammered in my ears. "You've heard him too." She nodded slowly. "He comes at night, asks if we want to play." The boyfriend snapped, "Stop, don't talk about him." He grabbed her hand. "Come inside, it's safer during the day." I almost laughed. Safer, that place is. But they were already walking toward the motel. And somehow, against my own logic, I followed. Inside the office, sunlight filtered through dirty blinds. The leather guest book still sat on the counter, open to the same yellowed page. The couple's names were already there, written in the same faded pencil as the others. "Did you sign this?" I asked. The man frowned. "No, why?" I turned the book toward them. Their names were written neatly, in handwriting that wasn't mine or the innkeeper's. And below mine, another new line had appeared. Daniel Gray checked out. A chill crawled up my spine. I looked up, heart pounding, but the office was empty again. The air was still. Only the faint buzz of flies, the smell of old dust. Then the motel door creaked open behind me. A whisper brushed my ear. "You're not supposed to be here after dawn." I spun around, no one. But the key in my pocket felt warm, as if just touched. By midday, the desert heat was unbearable. The couple had locked themselves inside room 5, curtains drawn, murmuring to each other in voices that rose and broke like waves. I couldn't tell if they were arguing or praying. I knocked softly. "Hey, it's Daniel, can we talk?" Silence. Then a thump, another, and a muffled scream. I turned the handle, it wasn't locked. The room was empty. But the walls were covered in handprints, hundreds of them, small like a child, all pressed into the peeling wallpaper, smeared with something dark and dry. In the corner, a toy car rested beside a dusty baseball glove. And on the mirror, written in streaks of red dust, "Play with me." The light flickered, and I heard a child giggle behind me. I turned, camera shaking in my hand. No one, just the door slowly closing on its own. I drove again. I don't know how long or how far, but eventually a shape appeared in the haze, a roadside diner, flickering neon letters spelling out Lucy's. For the first time, I saw another living soul. A waitress stood behind the counter, pouring coffee, smiling like nothing was wrong. "You look lost, hun," she said. "You have no idea," I muttered. "That motel." She froze mid-pour. Her eyes darted toward the window. "You stayed there." I nodded. She set the pot down gently. "My daddy used to warn us, said it was built on the mile marker that disappeared in '82. Whole family vanished there, a couple, their son, and the motel owner. They say every few years it shows back up to collect travelers." I felt my hands tremble. "Collect?" She looked at me sadly. "If you see the boy, don't answer him. He's not asking to play, he's asking to replace." The lights in the diner flickered once. When they came back on, the waitress was gone. And outside the window, parked beside my car, sat the red Mustang empty. I ran from the diner into the blinding daylight, heart hammering. The red Mustang was there, but the seats were empty, no footprints around it, just heat shimmer and the faint ticking of a cooling engine. "Hello," I shouted into the stillness. No echo, no birds, even the wind had died. I started the car and sped off. 10 minutes later, I passed a green road sign. "Welcome to Dry Hollow, population 217. Relief flooded me, civilization. But when I glanced at the mileage marker beneath it, my blood went cold. Mile 66. The same number painted on the broken curb, outside the motel. I looked in the mirror. The horizon shimmered, distorted like I was driving through water. I pressed harder on the gas. The radio turned on by itself, static whining through the speakers. Then a child's voice, faint but clear. "You promised you, play." The car swerved. I yanked the wheel, heart pounding. The road curved sharply, and there it was again, the Road Motel, sitting under the white sky like a scar that wouldn't heal. I didn't remember turning around. I didn't remember braking. But I was back. I stumbled out of the car, screaming at the empty air. "What do you want from me?" The motel didn't answer. The wind had picked up again, carrying that low, almost electrical hum I'd begun to dread. Room 6 was gone. Between rooms 5 and 7, there was only wall, no door, no window, no trace that room 6 had ever existed. My hands trembled as I walked the length of the building. On the far side, I found a narrow maintenance shed I hadn't noticed before. The padlock was broken, rusted. Inside, dust, cobwebs, a single bare bulb, and in the center of the room, a child's tricycle, red paint chipped, back wheel missing. Beneath it, a small box. I knelt. Inside were Polaroids, dozens of them. Each one showed guests standing in front of the motel, smiling, holding their keys. And in every single photo, just behind them, blurred but visible, was the same boy. Same striped shirt, same vacant eyes. I flipped through them until I found the most recent one. It was me. I dropped the photo. My own voice whispered behind me, "You shouldn't have opened the box." I spun around, flashlight shaking. A man stood in the doorway, middle-aged, sunburnt skin, wearing a leather jacket and carrying a crowbar. "Easy," he said. "You're not the first." I stared at him. "Who are you?" "Name's Keller," he said. "Trucker. Broke down here last year, or maybe it was last week. Hard to tell time once the road gets you." He walked closer. His eyes were bloodshot, pupils wide. "I've tried burning it down," he said, nodding toward the motel. "Bullets don't work. Fire don't work. Only thing that does is forgetting." "What do you mean?" He smiled, and for a moment I thought he might cry. "It feeds on memory. The ones who remember the boy, the laughter, the knocks, they stay forever." He handed me a matchbook from Lucy's diner. "Burn your photos," he said. "Burn the memory and maybe you'll wake up somewhere else." Then he turned and walked into the desert. I watched until the heat haze swallowed him whole. That night I gathered the Polaroids outside the motel. The wind howled across the sand, carrying the faint echo of laughter, dozens of voices, whispering, overlapping, chanting my name. I struck a match. The flame caught fast, curling the edges of the photos. One by one, the smiling faces blackened and vanished into ash. The last one, my photo, burned slowest. I watched the boy's face fade first. But as the smoke rose, the motel lights flickered, and I realized I wasn't alone. The couple from the red Mustang stood behind me. Their faces were pale, hollow, eyes glazed white. "You shouldn't have done that," the woman said. Her voice came from far away, warped, echoing over itself. The man beside her held the little boy's hand. "He doesn't like it when you burn his things," he whispered. The boy looked up at me. His mouth stretched into a grin that was too wide, too sharp. "Wanna play?" The fire died instantly, smothered by wind that came from nowhere. I woke up in room 6. The bed was freshly made. The air smelled of detergent and iron. The picture frame on the nightstand was gone, replaced by a mirror. My reflection looked wrong. Pale, bruised eyes, lips cracked from the desert air. But behind me, in the reflection, stood the boy. He waved. I turned around, nothing. When I looked back at the mirror, he was closer, his face right beside mine. "You took my room," he whispered. Then he pressed his hand against the glass, and it left a dark print that didn't fade. My reflection blinked once and didn't blink back. For a long time, I just stood there, breathing hard, waiting for something to move. Then the reflection smiled and whispered, "Check out time." The mirror cracked from the inside. The mirror cracked open a slit like an eyelid, and the world behind it bled through. Sound rushed in, laughter, wind, sirens, then silence again. When I opened my eyes, I was outside. The motel loomed behind me under a starless sky, its neon sign buzzing like a dying insect. The sand stretched for miles, but no moon, no sun, only that white static glow that seemed to hum beneath the earth. I walked until my legs gave out. The motel lights never shrank. It followed me, or I followed it. I couldn't tell anymore. Then a voice cut through the hum. Low, hoarse, familiar. You made it farther than most. I turned. Keller stood beside the tricycle, smoke curling from a cigarette. He looked older, his eyes sunken, skin gray. What is this place? I whispered. He shrugged. The space between where you should have died and where you think you still are. You said forgetting would free me. He nodded toward the horizon. You burned the photos, but not the memory. The road feeds on what you remember, so it keeps showing you what you won't let go. Then what happens if I forget everything? He smiled faintly. You'll stop being you. And with that, Keller turned and walked straight into the motel's shadow and disappeared. By the time I stumbled back to the motel, dawn was bleeding over the desert. For the first time, I saw something new, a collapsed section of wall behind the rooms, sand drifting through the cracks. I followed the trail until I reached a half-buried wooden door. On it, someone had carved the number 6. It wasn't a room, it was a cellar. Inside, darkness, the smell of wet soil. My flashlight flickered across a small concrete space and I saw bones, dozens of them, some tiny like a child, others older, brittle, unburied. And in the center, a single gravestone. Ethan Lowe, 1974-1982. He just wanted to play. I remembered the photo of the family, the scratched-out boy, the motel owner's family. Hank Lowe, his wife, their son Ethan. He died here. The motel became his grave. But how? Something shifted in the dirt. A hand, small, pale, pushed up from the ground. I stumbled back, choking. The boy rose from the soil, eyes like mirrors, voice soft and cold. You shouldn't have come back. The air turned solid, heavy, thick, full of whispers. Every room light flickered on at once. The boy took a step toward me, dragging his tricycle behind him. You all come here, he said. You forget about us, you keep driving, you pretend we don't exist. I'm sorry, I whispered. You'll stay, he said. No, I said, you can't keep me. He tilted his head, curious, then trade. The air grew colder. The motel lights dimmed until only his eyes glowed. Forget, he said, and I'll let you go. I didn't understand. He stepped closer, his hand outstretched. Forget who you are. And somehow I did. For a moment I saw myself standing there, hollow-eyed, holding his hand. Then blackness. I woke up in my car, engine still running, the road stretching endlessly before me. The motel was gone. Or maybe it had never been there. Rain poured so hard it looked like static. I drove for what felt like hours, headlights slicing through fog that refused to move. My radio hissed faintly, then clicked on by itself. Soft, distorted children's laughter filled the car. No, I whispered, gripping the wheel. I recognized the next turn. The same crooked sign. The same billboard. The Road Motel, vacancy flickering in the distance. I hit the brakes. The world stuttered. The rain froze midair for a split second and then started again. I was back. I got out, shouting into the void. What do you want from me? The wind howled in response, carrying that same childlike voice. You stayed, you forgot, now you remember. I dropped to my knees. My reflection shimmered in a puddle beside me, but it wasn't my reflection anymore. It was the boy's face, smiling. That's when I saw it behind the flickering motel sign, a faint door-shaped outline in the rain, not part of any building, just there. The last thing he said before the darkness came back was, "Only the ones who remember can leave." So I turned the camera on, the one thing that had always kept me connected to what was real, and started recording everything backward. Every scream, every room, every shadow in reverse. The motel began to distort, its walls bending, collapsing inward like film burning in reverse. And for the first time, I felt air that wasn't heavy, like the world had exhaled. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. I was standing on the shoulder of a quiet highway, sunlight washing over the wet asphalt. The sign was gone, the motel gone, just a long, empty road leading nowhere. My car was there, keys still in the ignition, camera on the passenger seat still recording. I looked at the footage. The last frame showed me stepping through that glowing door of rain. And right before the screen cut to static, a voice whispered, "Now someone else will take the road." I looked down the highway, and for a moment, I swore I saw headlights in the distance, heading my way. Then my phone buzzed. A notification, new subscriber, the Road Motel, 1 view. Only one. Mine. I turned the camera toward the road one last time. The wind was still, the world silent, but in the reflection of my car window, just for a second, I saw a neon sign flicker behind me. Vacancy.